Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Lara.
The case I have for you today is the story of a Texas fitness instructor who was brutally killed inside a church before dawn. It's a case as baffling as it is terrifying. It's a case where the killer came dressed in what looked like SWAT gear. The killer was caught on camera, yet still walks free a decade later. Who was the shadowy figure patrolling the church hallways with a hammer in hand? Why would anyone target a loving mother of three in such a calculated way? And how did a routine early morning workout turn into a mysterious, unsolved murder? Was this a random intruder or someone who knew exactly where she'd be and when? And how does a killer get caught on camera, vanish without a trace? What might finally crack this case? Maybe the distinctive gait of the suspect on video? This is the unsolved murder of Missy Bevers.
Oh, I recognize this one. Did we do this in a Two Truths and a Lie?
Ooh, good memory. We did. It's been a minute, though.
It has been a minute. I'll have to go back and look at it. I think that was when Krista and Keela did. We'll have to look at that again.
Oh, okay. I like it. They have a heads up on this week then.
Yes. If they remember. It was a while ago, I think. So,
all right. Let's see how much you remember.
Yes.
It's a little after 5 a.m. on a stormy Monday, April 18th, 2016. A participant in a Camp Gladiator fitness boot camp pulls into the parking lot of Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas. They're a few minutes early for the 5 a.m. class. Maybe they're a few minutes late. In the pre-dawn darkness, time is a bit blurry. Normally, these classes are held outside in the parking lot, but rain has been pounding the area all night. The church lights are on, but something feels off. As the participant steps out of their car, they notice broken glass near a side door, and the door is ajar. Inside, it's eerily quiet instead of buzzing with the usual energy of instructor Terry, who goes by Missy Bevers, setting up her stations for the class. The participant calls out for Missy, but hears no reply, only the hollow echo of their own voice in the hallway. Suddenly, they see what no one ever expected. Missy Bevers is lying on the ground, unresponsive and bleeding. Panicked, they fumble for their phone and dial 911. Within minutes, another early arriver rushes in and also dials 911 for help. The church is now a crime scene. By 5:07 a.m., the first police and paramedics are arriving, red and blue lights flashing under the dark, stormy sky. Stunned fitness students huddle behind police tape in the rain, realizing that something horrible has happened to the instructor who invited them here. In the chaotic minutes that follow, officers secure the building and confirm the unthinkable. 45-year-old Missy Bevers is dead, clearly the victim of a violent attack. Word spreads quickly among the tight-knit community. Missy's husband, Brandon Bevers, is reached by a frantic phone call from a Camp Gladiator camper. He's out of town on a fishing trip and can barely process what he's hearing. In his shock, Brandon tells his sister that Missy was, quote, in a car wreck, perhaps clinging to hope that this isn't as sinister as it sounds. But soon, police directly inform him of the tragic truth. Missy has been murdered. It's a scene of confusion, horror, and heartbreak, the kind that just doesn't happen in a town like this. Now, to understand how this nightmare unfolded, we need to rewind and learn a little bit about who Missy was and how she came to be alone in that church in the pre-dawn hours. Missy Bevers, born Terry Leanne Strickland, was, by all accounts, a force of positive energy. She was born in Texas in 1970 and grew up with two brothers, eventually graduating from Tarleton State University with a business degree. She married her husband, Brandon, in 1998, and together they built a family in Red Oak, which is a community not far from Dallas. They had three daughters who in 2016 were 8, 13, and 15. Missy had spent some time as a teacher of special education before her children were born. As her kids grew older, Missy reinvented herself, channeling her lifelong, outgoing nature and love for helping others into a new passion, fitness. In her 40s, Missy got into the best shape of her life, which I love hearing.
Yes.
I love hearing when people are able to do that and totally get into fitness maybe later than some people think is possible, maybe.
Yeah. No, I love that too.
Mm-hmm. She became a certified instructor for Camp Gladiator, which is a popular outdoor boot camp program, hoping to inspire others to improve their physical and mental health. Missy was known for her radiant smile and inclusive spirit. Friends and family will say that Missy never met a stranger. She welcomed everyone as a friend. She loved the ocean and the beach. She was deeply involved in her church, and she balanced her devotion to fitness with devotion to her family and her faith. By April 2016, 45-year-old Missy had built a loyal following of boot camp participants who adored her enthusiastic and caring personality. Girl was dedicated. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 a.m., Missy led a boot camp class in the parking lot of Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, about 20 minutes from her home. The early start was typical for fitness boot camps. People need to get in, get it done before the day starts, get kids off for school, work, everything like that.
I always have admiration for people who can do that at 5 a.m. though, because that's always my goal. And I can tell you how many times it's happened, and that's zero.
Yeah, I'm not a 5 a.m. fitness kind of girl.
I really want to be, because that's like the only time that I can.
Right.
And it's so hard. So I always admire people who can do that.
Yes.
So if that's
agreed.
you out there, proud of you.
Me too. 100%.
Yes.
Missy would always show up even earlier than this 5 a.m. start time because she would set up cones, weights, mats. She would have everything ready for when her campers arrived so they could get started right on time. Midlothian is a small, safe city. The population's around 37,000. It's the kind of place where a pre-dawn workout at a church would never seem dangerous. In fact, the city's crime rate is well below the national average. Missy herself was safety conscious. She even had a handgun, which she sometimes kept in her truck for personal protection. Nothing in Missy's life suggested that she was in any kind of danger. And yet, in the early hours of April 18th, something or someone was waiting for her at the church. The weekend leading up to the murder gave really just subtle hints of what was to come, if any at all, really. Missy and her Camp Gladiator team had spent the previous days at a fitness camp, this event in Austin, Texas, which she proudly shared on social media. She was back home on Sunday night, which was April 17th, and a severe thunderstorm rolled through North Texas. Always organized, Missy made sure to alert her boot camp students that because of the bad weather, Monday's 5 a.m. class would be held inside the church rather than outside. She said, quote, "If it's raining, we're still training, no excuses." The last-minute change, moving the class indoors, would prove to be tragically significant as it meant Missy would be unlocking a dark building and prepping alone in the pre-dawn hours. That same night, Missy exchanged her usual goodnight phone call with her husband, Brandon, who was away on an annual fishing trip in Mississippi. Brandon had left town the day before, and he posted social media updates from Mississippi to document his travels, firmly establishing his whereabouts. Missy went to bed early, mentioning online that she had to be up by 3:30 a.m. for class prep.
That's
very admirable.
So hard. Yes.
Nothing about her Sunday night seemed abnormal, just her dedication to this class, getting ready for another early morning workout. Sometime before dawn on Monday, April 18th, an unknown individual entered the Creekside Church of Christ. Surveillance cameras inside the church captured a strange scene around 3:50 a.m. Now, I had Laura watch this before we recorded, which I normally give her no information at all. but I wanted her to be able to picture this as we were talking about it. And we'll also post a link to the surveillance for anyone to go check out.
It's very interesting. I would recommend watching it for sure.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot more about it in a little bit. So at 3:50 a.m., you see a figure clad head to toe in what looks like police tactical gear roaming the hallways. The person wore a black helmet, black gloves, and a black vest emblazoned with the word police across the front. An outfit that eerily resembled a SWAT officer or riot police uniform. In one hand, they carried what appeared to be a hammer or other similar blunt instrument. The intruder moved at this meandering pace through the dark building, randomly opening doors, breaking some glass, as if trying to set this burglary in progress scene. At one point, the figure disappeared into the church's kitchen area and spent several minutes there out of view. Outside, the storm was still making the early morning even darker and quieter than usual. Crucially, the church's exterior security cameras were not functioning that day.
Of course.
Why is that always the case? There's no footage of how the perpetrator arrived. However, a nearby sporting goods store did have outdoor CCTV that captured something odd. Around 2 a.m., a light-colored 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima or similar model was circling the area slowly, lights turning off and on, then briefly parking before driving off. Police later released that footage, calling the vehicle a car of interest, but they don't know if it's connected. However, the timing and the behavior were strange. And to this day, they are still trying to identify the driver. No one's ever come forward. If the car was related, it suggests the killer or maybe an accomplice might have been staking out the area or waiting for the right moment hours before the attack. Back at the church, Missy pulled into the parking lot at 4:16 a.m. to start setting up for class. She parked and, as usual, began carrying her equipment, her weights, mats, cones, things like that, from her truck through the church's side entrance. Unbeknownst to Missy, that door had likely been pried open by the intruder moments earlier. Surveillance footage, which police have not publicly released, later show Missy entering the building between 4:18 to 4:20 a.m., dressed in workout gear, clearly ready to teach this workout class. Missy might have noticed some broken glass or an open door, but it seems she was unaware that there was still someone inside the building roaming. What exactly happened in the next few minutes remains partly a mystery. At some point, shortly after Missy stepped inside, she crossed paths with the unknown intruder. Given the later evidence, police believe there was a violent confrontation. I'm sure that Missy tried to defend herself. She was strong and even had a licensed gun, but her firearm was left secured in her truck outside, leaving her unarmed in that moment. The struggle was swift and brutal. When it was over, Missy lay wounded on the church floor, having suffered multiple puncture injuries to her head and chest. Later, investigators would conclude that these wounds were consistent with a hammer or something similar, like whatever the suspect was carrying on the video. And there was a bloody hammer and other tools, which have not been released what exactly they were, recovered near Missy's body, possibly dropped by the assailant, though police have never definitively confirmed which tool was the murder weapon.
Interesting. That's really sad.
It's really sad. In the darkness and pouring rain outside, the first of Missy's students arrived around 4:35 a.m. Noticing only that the church doors were open but not seeing Missy, this person chose to wait in their car for a bit. They might have assumed Missy was simply running late due to the storm or wasn't fully done setting up. Maybe they got there early and wanted to listen to a podcast or a book for a minute before class at 5 a.m. By 5 a.m., though, the class start time, a few more participants had gathered and some went in for class to start. That's when they made the horrific discovery of Missy lying unresponsive. At 5 and 5:01 a.m., there were 2 distraught 911 calls alerting police to an injured person at the church. First responders from the Midlothian Fire Department were dispatched within seconds. Patrol officers sped to the scene by 5:07 a.m. When they arrived, they found Missy's campers upset and a ghastly crime scene inside. Paramedics reached Missy, but it was too late. She had no signs of life. She was officially pronounced dead shortly after police got there. This shocking timeline, an ordinary morning turned into a crime scene in a matter of minutes, left investigators with a narrow window in which the murder occurred. We know that the killer was inside the church for at least half an hour, from 3:50 a.m. to around 4:20 a.m., waiting, and fled in the few minutes between the attack and 5 a.m. when many more of the campers started showing up. It's really scary to think that the murderer may have still been in the building as Missy's first student sat outside in their car at 4:35 and then slipped away before help arrived.
That's what I was thinking. They were probably still there when that person got there.
Yeah, I think so too.
20 minutes from when Missy got there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 15 even. I think they said she went in the church at 4:18 to 4:20.
Mm-hmm.
So very quick.
Yeah. They could have walked in on that happening even.
I agree. And who knows what would have happened? They could have been murdered as well.
Yeah.
It would be really scary to know
Yeah.
what you could have walked into if
Right.
not for just waiting for a minute.
Yeah.
It's also probably something they think about. If I had gone in and seen her and called 911 right then, but you can't know what would have happened. The police were there really quickly. The paramedics were there really quickly, but somehow this perpetrator vanished without any witnesses other than the CCTV in those pre-dawn moments.
Was it still pretty dark
Yeah, really
at
dark.
that time?
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the storm making it more so.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Midlothian police, along with Texas Rangers, which are the state police in Texas, and FBI agents soon joined the case. They faced a daunting scene inside the church. Broken glass lay all over from doors the suspect had forced open. There were the tools, including the hammer, that might have been used in the attack. Missy's body showed puncture wounds on her head and chest, injuries severe enough to have caused her death. An autopsy the next day would later conclude that a head wound was fatal, although the autopsy has not been released, and so you can't see exactly what was in there. And I assume they're holding that back for a future case or as they're interviewing people to make sure all the details aren't known. It appeared the killer had bludgeoned or stabbed Missy with a pointed object. A claw hammer, for instance, could cause puncture-like injuries, and that was a prime suspect for the weapon. Interestingly, Missy's pickup truck outside was still locked and contained her purse, her iPad, and her handgun, which were all untouched. Nothing of value was stolen from her or from anywhere in the church. This immediately told police that robbery was not the motive. Missy's killer hadn't been after money or belongings, and in fact, the absence of theft and the nature of the wounds suggested a personal targeted attack rather than a random crime. Investigators theorized early on that the scene might have been staged to look like a burglary gone wrong, which, when you watch that video and you see them just meandering, opening doors randomly, it doesn't appear to me that they're in a hurry. it seems like they know they have time. It also seems to me they are trying to make it look like a burglary. But I was thinking about this. It's possible where they're wearing the police gear and trying to make it look like a burglary. That could have been for Missy and not for police. What if she walked in and saw the doors open, broken glass? She doesn't know what she's walking into. And then she sees a police officer.
Yeah.
That might have been a way to gain her trust. Or if she spotted them before they were close enough to attack her, what if that was to make her feel at ease? Like someone was there because the church had had a break-in.
Yeah.
She
that's
might
a
have
really
gone up to
interesting
talk
thought.
to them or
Yeah.
something, and then they'd be close enough, because if you're not using a handgun, you have to be close to use a tool like a hammer.
Yeah.
And if they just walked in and saw somebody who was burglarizing the church, she might have run back to her car to get her handgun.
Yeah. That's true.
And if you are trying to make it look like a burglary, why wouldn't you have just taken something, anything?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're committing murder in a church, I don't think you have any kind of ethical dilemma about stealing from a church.
No. Yeah, no. And it doesn't seem like the place that a burglar would go into to try and rob. Why would you pick a church if they're saying it's like a burglary gone wrong that she walked into and that's what they were there for? Why would you go to a church to try and it doesn't feel like that would be why they were there initially, if that makes sense.
The only thing I could think of on that aspect is if they knew that church was on Sunday, but banks aren't open on Sunday. Maybe they thought the church held on to checks, cash, tithing offerings, whatever, until Monday to take it to the bank. So possibly, but where that's not taken.
Yeah.
I don't think that it was, I feel like it was targeted.
Yeah.
But we'll get more into a lot of that in a minute. Investigators wondered about the deliberate way the suspect wandered the halls and wondered if it was a way to mislead or delay discovery of Missy. If people walking in would be distracted by what looks like a burglary as well, and maybe call police for that instead of going looking for Missy herself. Crime scene technicians scoured for physical evidence. Given the suspect was covered in tactical clothes from head to toe, they likely left very little biological evidence. No obvious DNA or fingerprints from the killer have ever been announced. Investigators did take Missy's truck and personal items into evidence, hoping to find clues in her communications or social media that might point to someone. They also collected the suspect's abandoned tools for forensic analysis, hoping for touch DNA, blood, or any other identifiable markings. If they found anything, they haven't been made public. The police did reveal a few investigative leads that paint a picture of Missy's life in the weeks and months before her death. The first was a creepy message on LinkedIn. Less than 3 days before the murder, Missy showed a friend an odd private message she had received on LinkedIn. The message was from a man that neither of them knew, and both women agreed that it was, quote, creepy and strange, according to search warrant documents. Unfortunately, Missy's friend couldn't recall the sender's name when later talking to police, and the message had been deleted.
That's too bad.
They weren't able to recover it. The fact that it was so close to when this happened to her makes investigators feel like it has something related, but it could be a coincidence, you know? In the course of gathering Missy's electronic communications, police discovered that she had been exchanging messages with a different individual on LinkedIn starting in January of 2016, so about 3 months before. These messages eventually turned flirtatious and familiar, which is what the warrant describes them as. The person is described as a male person of interest. And they did talk to him. He admitted to messaging Missy in a way that became intimate in tone. Portions of these chats were recovered. Police say it suggests an emotional affair or at least a close friendship outside of her marriage. And while there's no evidence this person was involved in the murder, it introduced a potential motive of jealousy or personal conflict into the narrative. Missy's husband, Brandon, acknowledged that he became aware of these communications and indicated that he had, quote, already forgiven her for what he considered a minor indiscretion. The family stood by Missy, emphasizing that any marital issues had been resolved and she wasn't mixed up in anything that should or could lead to violence. The only thing I think about that is we don't know who was the other person sending these messages, if they had a significant other that maybe didn't feel the same way.
I'm
guessing police looked into that avenue, but I don't see it addressed in anything. And maybe they were single. I don't know.
Yeah.
Search warrants and tips also hinted that the Bevers family was facing some financial difficulties at the time, and also that an earlier affair in 2014 had caused strain on the marriage, but the couple had been working through that. This context put extra scrutiny on Missy's inner circle. Police looked carefully at those closest to her. We know statistically in violent crimes, the spouse or family is often a focus. It's standard procedure, but in a case this puzzling, they really had to look at every single angle. Very quickly, investigators verified the alibis of Missy's husband and other family members. Like we mentioned, Brandon, her husband, was indeed in Mississippi on a fishing trip, having flown out the day before. He provided flight records, car rental receipts, and even social media posts with geotags, proving he was states away when the murder occurred. Phone records and travel companions also proved that he couldn't possibly have physically done it. It did take Brandon 8 hours to drive straight home once he got the news. So the flight out, and then it is an 8-hour drive, which is pretty far. Missy's father-in-law, Randy, was also out of town. He had been in California at the time of the killing. Both men were quickly cleared by police after confirming their whereabouts, with detectives stating they had no evidence of any involvement from either one. However, a few days after the murder, Randy unintentionally generated a swirl of suspicion. And this is sad. On April 22nd, he visited a dry cleaner in Midlothian to drop off a blood-stained woman's white shirt, telling the clerk the blood was animal blood from a dog fight. The cleaner, who was aware of Missy's murder, alerted police. Investigators took the shirt and sent it for forensic testing. News reports were all over this at the time before finding out what that blood actually was. They said things like Missy's own family member was hiding bloody clothes. And to me, if you are involved in this in any way, shape, or form, you're not taking in a bloody shirt 4 days later to a dry cleaner. That seems insane.
Yeah.
And lab results confirmed the blood stains were not human blood at all, only dog blood, which matched Randy's explanation that his dog had been fatally injured in a fight and he'd gotten blood on his shirt while carrying the animal, which is so sad.
That is really sad.
To put to rest any rumors, both Randy and Brandon spoke to media explaining the tragic dog incident and expressing frustration that such a non-issue had taken attention away from the real killer. In the end, the bloody shirt was a red herring, and Missy's in-laws remained in good standing with investigators.
That is really sad and such unfortunate timing.
Absolutely.
To put that spotlight on them in a negative way.
And people might only see the headlines and assume that they're responsible and maybe not see the follow-up, which is why I wanted to address it here.
Yeah, and how many times do people see a headline and not even click on the article to see what it really is? Yep. It could have just said, murdered victim's father-in-law has bloody shirt or something like that. And then you click on it and it's like, here's what he said, here's what it was. It was not a big deal.
And here's the update a few days later.
They confirmed it is what he said it was.
Right.
But if people just see that headline, sometimes they don't click on it and jump to conclusions right away.
Yeah, I saw one yesterday that said over 100 different sets of bones were found in this man's storage unit. And the headline made it seem like he was a serial killer responsible for 100 different murders. And while this is also terrible, he had been stealing them from graveyards.
Oh.
I don't know why. Maybe to steal whatever was buried with them. I don't know. But the headline was completely misleading.
Oh, yeah. That happens all the time. I saw one. It's not related, but it was a picture of this older gentleman and a younger girl. They were both dressed up for a wedding. She was in a wedding dress. He was dressed up in a suit. It was something about a teacher and it was his student. And then it looked like they were getting married. He said, attends her wedding in a way he didn't expect or something. But you click on it and he had become like her father figure and he was walking her down the aisle. Like it was a heartwarming story. But the title made it seem so gross.
Yes.
It's like,
oh, I hate those.
So deceiving.
Yep.
And if you hadn't clicked on it, you would have had such a negative outlook on this nice story of this guy who totally mentored and became a father figure to this woman. But the article made it look so negative.
Yeah, 100%. Police didn't stop at family. After clearing them, the blood, all of that, they also chased down any tips about someone who might have had the means or a grudge to do this. One person of interest was a retired police officer from a nearby town. And this was suggested because he had a similar height, even though their height estimate is like 5'2" to 5'8". So I don't know how you can say a similar height.
That's a very big range.
It is a very big range. I feel like we should be able to figure out the height at least. Have somebody who's 5'2", 5'3", 5'4" walk through the church and see which one matches up.
Yeah, they do have that video. You can measure how they look compared to the doors and stuff.
Right. I don't understand the range, but everything I read says this huge range. This person also had the same walking gait as the figure in the video. The man had no obvious connection to Missy, but internet sleuths noted a resemblance in posture. Detectives did investigate him, reportedly finding some unrelated illegal material on his computer for which he was charged. But crucially, his alibi for the time of Missy's murder checked out, and he was ruled out of the homicide. It shows how far investigators were going in the process of eliminating suspects in Missy's case. Throughout all of this, the clearest evidence remained the surveillance footage from inside the church. Police released clips of it to the public within days, hoping someone might recognize the mannerisms or the outfit of the suspect. The video, though grainy, is haunting, and it is a centerpiece of this case, showing this person moving through the halls in such a peculiar way. So let's talk about the footage and what it does and doesn't reveal about Missy's killer. In the days after the murder, as the town reeled from the shock, local police made an unprecedented decision. They publicly released portions of the church's indoor security video, inviting the world to help identify the suspect captured on tape. The clips, which quickly spread on newscasts and the internet, are really eerie to watch. They show the church's empty corridors, dimly lit. You can tell there's a rainstorm raging outside. Into view walks the unknown assailant, dressed in the fake or possibly real police tactical outfit. We have the black helmet, the heavy vest that has police across the front of it, gloves, and baggy pants. The person's face is completely obscured by the helmet's visor or brim. They move deliberately, but oddly, with this slow, almost casual gait. At times, the suspect appears to have trouble walking smoothly. Their feet turn noticeably outward, especially the right foot. And you can see them sometimes bracing themselves with a hand on the wall for balance. It's as if they have an injury or a limp or something. or possibly they're not comfortable walking in all of that bulky gear. I've also wondered if they're wearing shoes that are multiple sizes too big and they're hard to walk in. Maybe that hand against the wall is to try to readjust the shoes. But you think about how many times police see the footprint and now they have a shoe size. I'm not sure that a footprint was recovered in this case, but it is possible they were trying to mislead investigators with that as well.
Especially with the rainstorm outside, it's possible that they might have left footprints.
Mm-hmm. It's just impossible to know if they're the right size or not.
Yeah, but I'm saying maybe that's why if the shoes were different size, maybe they were thinking that because it's raining, they had different shoes that they could wear or something.
Mm-hmm. I tried to find if it was possible to walk with that gait if you didn't really have it. And it seems like you possibly could, but it would be challenging to maintain every time you're in surveillance. But that is something they've really leaned into is the way this person walks. Now, in the video, the suspect methodically checks several doors, at one point using what looks like a crowbar or a pry tool to break open a door and shatter a window pane. They swing whatever they're holding down to smash the glass, then just calmly continue their patrol. This is a pretty chilling part of the video. It just feels like this calm demeanor while shattering a glass window. There's no panic. There's no running. It felt like they knew they would have time. Like they didn't try to show up and coordinate it for when Missy showed up. I'm guessing they had some idea of how long before her class started. Maybe not an exact, but maybe she'd show up between 4:10 and 4:30 and they're in there by 3:50.
Yeah.
Plenty of time to cause chaos, but they knew she'd show up before everyone else.
Yeah.
They move room to room, walking slowly, almost like they have all the time in the world. They're not looking for valuables. They're not picking anything up. Like we said, nothing was stolen. It feels, when you watch it, like someone waiting or searching for something specific.
Just meandering through the halls. I don't know. And the way that they walk through some of the rooms and just leave the doors open, it just feels they're just walking around, not for any particular reason at that time.
Why would you do that if you weren't waiting for Missy to arrive and not take something?
Yeah.
If you truly didn't know a workout class was being held there that morning and she surprised you, why?
What are you doing there?
And maybe they didn't find what they were looking for, but it didn't appear that they were in a hurry. Maybe they thought no one was coming until 8 a.m. and they had 4 hours to find whatever it was. I don't know. I'm also curious if they knew that there were surveillance videos in there. It doesn't feel like they address them or try to stay out of view, but also they're so covered in head to toe gear, you can't tell who it is anyways. We know that Missy entered the building around 4:20 a.m. Police have said there is unreleased footage of her walking in, and presumably at some point the suspect approaches her. However, authorities chose not to release the actual confrontation or any images of Missy in her final moments. They have not even disclosed exactly where in the church the attack happened, whether it was in a hallway, a room, or near the entrance. What we do know is that at the time Missy stepped inside, the suspect was already in those halls with a hammer in hand. The timing really does suggest a well-planned ambush. One of the most debated elements of the video is the suspect's physical profile. Initially, investigators, perhaps influenced by the bulkiness of the gear, referred to the suspect as he and presumed that it was a man. But as they studied the footage more, they publicly backtracked these statements. Midlothian's assistant police chief stated, "We no longer will say the suspect is a man." He acknowledged the speculation about the suspect, that it could be a woman, noting the gait and appearance on the video sometimes gave a feminine impression. And the truth is, the costume this disgusting human was wearing makes it hard to discern their body shape. And because it is full head to toe, they could have been wearing 12 sweatshirts underneath or something to make them appear bigger or bulkier than they really were. The person appears in the video of medium build and height. And like I said, the estimate is wide, 5'2" to 5'8". Police later clarified the height to the top of the headgear was 5'8", give or take an inch. So the actual person is probably a little bit shorter than that, without the helmet, without the shoes. The suspect's distinctive walk with feet angled outward and a possible hitch in the right leg was one strong identifying feature. Investigators even considered that the person might have had a temporary injury at the time, like a foot or a leg problem, and maybe it wasn't how they walked all the time. I sent this video to a few people to ask what their thought was, and I got responses on both ends. Some people were certain male, some were certain female. Laura was more like me, where at the beginning it appeared female. And then as they walk through, there are some things that seem more masculine to me.
Yeah, that when you first start the video and the person is walking down the hall, I thought it looked like a woman. Mm-hmm. And they open a door and then they go to a second door and they're like trying to open the door. Or they have like tools and they're trying to like almost break open the door. Yeah. And the way they're standing at that door made me feel like it looked more like a man.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think it also shifted my perspective because at first I didn't realize that the person was wearing a helmet. And when they turn, you get like a light on the head and it looked like a bald spot. So then I thought it was a man. So then after that, I was like, oh, it is a man because I couldn't tell. And then I was like, wait, that's a helmet. So yeah, I wasn't sure.
It's really hard to decide.
Yeah, because like when
someone say instinct says male, you know?
Yeah. Like when they're standing at the door, the way that they're standing, I felt looked more like a man. But then as they like walk down the hall again, I'm like, well, maybe not. It's really hard to tell.
It is.
But the walking, just seeing them from the front walking, I feel like look like a female. When they're standing from the side doing things, it looks more like man, how they're standing.
Yeah.
To me.
But there's really nothing that says for sure one way or the other.
No.
5 years into the investigation, the FBI brought in a specialist who was a forensic podiatrist, which is cool.
Yeah.
Dr. Michael Nierenberg to analyze the gait on the video. His conclusions are interesting. He noted that wearing heavy tactical gear and carrying objects can significantly alter how someone walks. The suspect could be moving strangely simply due to the weight and bulk of their outfit, not because of either a permanent disability or even a temporary injury. He also emphasized that gait is not a reliable indicator of gender, essentially debunking the idea that a feminine walk means the person is female. In short, the video can be interpreted in multiple ways. The killer might be a woman dressed in masculine SWAT-style costume to disguise her identity, or it could be a man who, for whatever reason, injury, or consciously trying, exhibited an unusual stride that some perceive as feminine. Police ultimately concede that they do not know the suspect's gender for sure.
Yeah.
The surveillance footage unquestionably shows a person comfortable enough to roam a building in the dark, fully aware of where cameras were or weren't, willing to put on this elaborate disguise. It appears highly likely this person knew Missy's schedule, since the only reason Missy was inside the church that day was due to the rain and the plan that she had announced just hours before on Facebook. If the killer didn't actually know Missy personally, they at least had to be monitoring her social media or communications to know where to find her and when. In fact, police warrant theorized that the murderer may have used a smartphone to track Missy's posts about her workout schedule and possibly even to record the murder itself. And I don't know exactly what leads them to believe that, but that is really scary.
That is really scary. So then you wonder too, maybe if this is someone who's jealous of her.
Yeah.
Could be.
Very possibly.
If it's someone who's mentally unstable and jealous of her getting fit and doing all this fitness stuff, that could be something.
Yeah. So many possibilities. It's really
someone
scary.
She knew from growing up, and it's not a huge town. Maybe someone that was jealous of her.
Possibly. The filming of the crime has never been confirmed, but it does show how investigators were thinking. They were thinking this is a premeditated act targeting Missy, not a spontaneous burglary encounter gone awry. As the days turned into weeks after the murder, the Midlothian Police Department poured resources into the case. They publicly stated that finding Missy's killer was their number one priority and that, quote, Missy was a beloved mother, wife, daughter, and sister. She and her family deserve our best efforts, end quote. The department received assistance from state and federal agencies, and by the 1-month mark, they had already sifted through hundreds of tips. People across the country watched the surveillance video online, and tips poured in about anyone who walked oddly or had access to tactical gear. Early on, a reward of $10,000 was offered for information leading to an arrest. That amount climbed to $20,000, and then $50,000 as donors, which included a local dairy company, chipped into the reward. Years later, with still no resolution, the reward would reach $150,000,
wow.
which is a big number. We don't see that very often in cases. This is a testament to how badly the community wants this case solved.
Yeah.
Yet, despite the money and the footage and the extensive investigation, no suspect has ever been publicly named or arrested, of course, as of today.
Wow. That's really wild.
Yeah. The vacuum of answers led to intense public speculation. Online, every frame of the video and every detail of Missy's life that leaked out was dissected. In fact, Missy's case became somewhat infamous in online circles due to the bizarre nature of the footage and the dearth of official information, really. A local podcast called True Crime Boards was launched by 2 women in the area devoted almost entirely to the Missy Bevers case and keeping it in the public eye. The podcast hosts, along with Missy's husband and friends, have organized billboards and vigils to keep the spotlight on the case, especially around anniversaries. Police acknowledge that tips tend to spike whenever Missy's case is featured on TV or podcasts, evidence that people haven't forgotten her. However, the intense interest did have a darker side. Some internet sleuths began zeroing in on certain individuals that they deemed suspects and at times spread rumors that caused real-life distress for those people. For example, one of Missy's fellow Camp Gladiator trainers found himself and his wife at the center of a wild theory. Online posters noted that the trainer's wife was on the shorter side and they said heavy set, some saying similar to the figure in the video, and that she happened to have a broken foot around that time, potentially explaining the limp. This speculation snowballed into accusations that the wife must be the killer and that her husband, Missy's coworker, might have helped or covered for her out of jealousy or some affair motive, which, again, total internet speculation. Because in reality, there was no evidence against this couple. They were just regular people who had been friendly with Missy. The rumors got so out of hand that police publicly stated the individuals had been investigated and cleared, pleading with some of the more overzealous web detectives to stop harassing innocent people. The trainer's husband said that the people online have no care for the truth. because accusing his family with these baseless allegations were extremely hurtful. Another local woman named April became a target of online speculation. She had attended a few of Missy's boot camp classes in 2015, so the year before, and had even posed in a group photo with Missy back then. People online dug through April's social media and discovered she had posted about a foot injury, which was more minor. It was like a bruised sprain, something like that, some months after her classes, and that her family owned a car similar to the Nissan Altima seen in the surveillance video near the crime scene. Total coincidence, plus unrelated details from her life, like a brief military enlistment and some political posts on Pinterest, led armchair detectives to wildly speculate these conclusions. They theorized April could be the foot sore killer in SWAT gear, and they stalked her personal life, snapping photos of her mother's car and sharing them online as if this were getaway evidence. Feeling hunted by these accusations, April went to police herself to clear things up. Detectives interviewed her, had her walk for them to compare the gait. They measured her height. And in the end, the Midlothian PD explicitly cleared April. And a detective even emailed some persistent Facebook sleuths telling them to quit targeting her, that she's been talked to and cleared. It's just unfortunate. The lack of arrest created this vacuum that was filled by rumor that harmed innocent people's reputations. The police have to keep many details confidential. We know that, but that secrecy sometimes can fuel online web sleuths to fill in gaps with their own theories. Nearly a decade has passed since Missy's murder, and despite the lack of resolution, several compelling theories have emerged based on real evidence and things from police. One of the biggest is that she was targeted by someone she knew, personal motive. This is a theory that Missy's own family has considered, and in fact, her husband Brandon has said he believes the killer may have been a woman and likely someone Missy knew personally. The rationale here is that Missy's murder feels so personal and deliberate. The killer went through a lot of trouble arriving early, disguising themselves, staging the fake break-in for whatever reason. All of that deliberate action implies anger or passion rather than random violence. One specific angle is the jealous wife theory, the idea that perhaps Missy was targeted by the wife or romantic partner of a man Missy was perceived to be too friendly with. Not saying that she was, just perceived by an outside source. We know from police documents that Missy had at least one flirtatious communication from LinkedIn. So could a spouse or girlfriend of that man have discovered the messages? It sounds dramatic, but not impossible.
But it could be, especially if they were mentally unstable.
Exactly. Wildly jealous, blind with rage. I mean, yeah.
Like you said, it turned more into an emotional affair.
Right.
They could have been really upset about that.
Well, Missy's husband might have been able to have the conversations, work through it with her. You don't know the other side of it.
Exactly.
People who support this theory also note that a woman might have had more reason to specifically dislike Missy, even hate her, than a random male burglar would, and thus be planning to confront her directly or willing to. Missy's own Facebook post gave away her exact location and time that morning, so anyone who knew her or followed her online could have known where to find her. The killer appeared to know her schedule and came prepared. Like we said, nothing was stolen, indicating more of a motive to kill Missy. You can't explain it away like we talked about earlier, but it just doesn't feel like a spur of the moment crime. If Missy had entangled relationships or unintentionally had resentment caused, that could breed a motive strong enough for murder. It's also been observed that the suspect on video wasn't exceptionally tall or muscular looking, and the estimate of 5'8", including the helmet and the shoes, could mean the person is significantly smaller in reality.
Yeah.
Some of Missy's female friends or acquaintances might roughly fit that build. I think we all have friends that could fit the build. It's not very descriptive or unique.
Right.
Despite extensive interviews, police haven't publicly identified any friend, acquaintance, peripheral acquaintance of Missy as a serious suspect. They scrutinized those around her and found no one with both a clear motive and no alibi. Many names floated on the internet have been checked out and cleared by law enforcement. Also, wearing tactical gear and committing such a brutal murder with a hammer is a very extreme act. It would be a huge leap for, say, a jealous but otherwise law-abiding woman, man, whatever, to plan and execute this. It's not impossible. Passion crimes can be extreme, but it is a hurdle. We also have to consider the suspect's appearance could be deceiving. Bulky gear can hide gender clues. The gait could be a red herring. So while the personal motive is plausible, there's no specific individual that evidence has pointed to so far. So if it isn't someone she knew, then the only alternative is a random psychopath or a stalker. This is another theory considered by law enforcement and sometimes her family, that Missy was killed by someone she didn't know at all. A person who saw her online fitness posts and became obsessed, or a burglar who broke in and then attacked her when confronted. The presence of the creepy LinkedIn message, which I really wish police had been able to retrieve and investigate, just a few days before her murder, lends to the idea of a stalker or an unstable stranger fixating on her.
Did Missy's friend say anything else about the message, or just that it was creepy, or not anything that's been released to the public?
The only thing that's been released is that it was creepy and strange. So whether she remembered more details about it that police are holding back, I do know she didn't specifically remember who it came from. But at the same time, anybody could create a fake LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
In 2016. So that really could have come from someone she knows or anyone, right?
Yeah. I always wonder, like, creepy. Okay, was that like someone sending flirtatious messages or threatening messages or just like random words? Just wonder what kind of creepy.
Totally. Because you're absolutely right. Creepy could be a weird, flirtatious message from someone you've never met and have no idea who they are. Or it could be something more on the stalking side of things or threatening side of things, like you said.
Yeah. So creepy is like, what kind of creepy? Because that could lead more as, do we think this could be, it definitely could be related. But if it's someone saying, oh, I watched you outside the gym the other day, or, oh, I think you're so beautiful and so pretty. Like,
that is a different kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Also, creepy enough to show your friend and discuss that it's creepy. And maybe they did that because maybe they both got random messages here and there. But I would like to know more about that.
Look at that. Maybe they could have seen the IP address or looked more into that too to find out who that person could have been. It's really unfortunate that they weren't able to see that message. Was it something Missy deleted, or did they delete it on their side? I don't use LinkedIn, so I don't know how that works.
I'm not sure. All it says is that it had been deleted. You would think they could reach out to LinkedIn, and maybe not at the time.
Yeah, like a storage database of messages.
Right. But maybe there's so many that if they're deleted, they're gone.
Maybe.
I mean, they can get deleted text messages.
Yeah. And I've gotten weird text messages. I'm like, ooh, that's spam, and deleted it and got rid of it. So I could definitely see her doing that with that kind of message too. She's like, ooh, it shows her friend and then deletes it.
I would like to know if it was deleted on both ends or why it wasn't retrievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, because now they can even get things from Snapchat, which automatically deletes.
Yeah.
So, but maybe that's more of a recent change.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There are infamous cases out there where the killer has impersonated law enforcement or security guards, things like that, to gain advantage over victims, which is what I was wondering about the fact that they're trying to make it look like a burglary while wearing police costume. I didn't call it a costume because not giving them any nice things. Missy did not report being threatened by anyone she knew, so an unknown stalker isn't out of the question. And as far as we know, the LinkedIn stranger to this day remains unidentified. If someone was mentally unstable and obsessed, they might do something like dress up in SWAT gear and wait in the church. The church being dark and empty made it a target of opportunity for someone looking to commit violence in secret. Notably, police briefly considered robbery as a motive since the suspect was breaking things, which could imply just a random going into this church, let's see what they have, and was interrupted. But they ultimately found that there was no theft. They've tended to lean away from burglary as an explanation. Still, a would-be burglar who hadn't had time to steal what they wanted might have panicked and killed Missy if surprised. It's slim scenario, but it is possible.
Possibility.
Yep. The biggest strike against the pure random burglar theory is just the meticulousness displayed. The subject waited around for at least 30 minutes inside before Missy arrived. And that's not typical burglar behavior. They usually smash and grab and leave quickly. Also, random criminals often don't go to the trouble of dressing in full tactical gear. And you would think if that was this person's MO, there would be other cases either before this happened to Missy or after where they could say there's somebody in the area, in the community that is doing this dressed as a police officer and tie it to that. And where we don't have anything like that, I don't know. That one's hard for me.
Is there any other cases of anybody dressed up oddly?
Not that I could find.
Maybe that is their MO, but it's like, okay, I'll dress up like a clown or a firefighter or a police officer or a pilot or whatever they can find to kind of hide themselves. I don't know.
So there was another murder in Texas, another case that is brought up sometimes in online comments, things like that, that happened about 3 years after Missy was killed. It was also in Texas. Her name was Elizabeth Bereza, and she was setting up for a garage sale in front of her house. And whoever did this showed up a little bit before 7 a.m., also driving a Nissan, but it was a Nissan Frontier. And they were wearing what some people say looks kind of like a Jedi outfit or cosplay Jedi type getup. It is one that maybe we should cover as well because it is still unsolved. And in this one too, even though there is surveillance footage of what happened, they also aren't sure if it is a man or a woman. They've never identified a suspect. It does have eerie similarities to Missy's case.
Interesting.
I've not seen ones that are just burglaries, but I'm going to go look into that when we are done recording today.
Yeah.
Because that is an interesting avenue as well, where maybe there were other things and this person was just there for burglary. And maybe they were only burglaries before this happened. And then once it turned to murder, instead of just burglary, they had to switch up what they were wearing or move. I don't know if you didn't mean to kill someone.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, it is. That is really interesting.
Because it's always like you hear the serial killer that dressed up like a clown every time or things like that. It's like maybe they do something similar, just dressed up as different people.
Cosplay type things. Yeah, exactly.
Who knows? There's so many places you can go buy costumes.
Yes. And online. You can get anything on eBay, I think. I don't know. But I would assume.
Yep.
Another theory is that this was murder for hire. They suggest that someone in Missy's life wanted her dead and hired a hitman or an assassin to do the job in this bizarre manner. It feels more out there to me than the other two.
Yeah.
It stems from trying to reconcile the personal feeling motive with the calculated execution. For instance, if a person like Missy's husband, which I am not saying he's related in any way, shape, or form, or another family member had a motive, even somebody in her peripheral that had a motive, but an airtight alibi, they could have arranged for someone to carry it out, theoretically. Similarly,
seems like such a sloppy way for a person for hire to carry something out.
And maybe
I guess
that's
you think of
point.
Like Carol Thompson.
Yeah.
Thinking her case, that was pretty sloppy too. So
that
you never know.
Right. A very sloppy hitman. Yeah, that's a good point. Because you think about when somebody asks, like we just talked about with Crystal Rogers, when they ask if you know anybody, you might be getting somebody that just needs money and not somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's willing to go to those lanes, like in the Carol Thompson case, because they are willing to do anything to get money. Yeah, there was a life insurance policy on Missy. Reporting says it was about $142,000. So to me, that's not a reason for motive, but of course, online people say they feel like that combined with where reporting says that they were having financial difficulty. I don't. But I do know that other life insurance policies have been the
motive before
murder, right?
Yeah. Usually it's like they took out a huge one, over $1 million or something.
Or 7, right?
Or 7, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why you would think if it was somebody who was planning it, premeditated, there would be more if money was a motive. This theory gets a little bit of coverage or takes up space in your brain, I guess, because of the level of premeditation, showing up early, figuring out the layout of the church beforehand, disguising the identity, staging the scene, which could be for a multitude of reasons, could all be consistent with a planned hit. The killer also seems to have been savvy about evidence, whether they got lucky or did it on purpose, knowing how to avoid leaving DNA or being seen on any of the outside cameras. I would like to know why they weren't working, if they hadn't been working, or if that was new. Law enforcement really did scrutinize Brandon, her husband, like they would in any murder, but there's zero evidence that he was in connection with anybody or had absolutely anything to do with this. Murder for hire, though, is very rare. And those that do occur often unravel eventually because of communication or payment trails. Those are real evidence leads that come out, and no leads have emerged publicly here. They also say if it was somebody murdered for hire, they would much more likely be using a gun than a hammer. That feels obvious to me, especially if you're inside a church, you know other people aren't showing up for a while. Keeping that quiet, like the sound of a gunshot, wouldn't necessarily be something you'd be really worried about if you know you have time before and you want something quicker so you can get out faster before people arrive.
Yeah.
There are a lot of far-fetched theories out there, but I very much prefer to talk about the ones that have some evidence behind them or investigators or family have put forth.
Yeah.
As of today, it's nearly 10 years later. the murder of Missy Bevers is still unsolved and open. It haunts not only Missy's family, but the Midlothian community and also law enforcement officials who seldom see such a brazen criminal and a brazen crime go unanswered. Investigators say they still receive tips almost on a daily basis about this case. Each one is checked, no matter how far-fetched it is. They periodically re-examine evidence. They've brought in outside agencies for fresh perspective, even consulting cutting-edge experts like the forensic podiatrist we talked about, all in hopes of catching a break. Missy's family continues to be vocal and hopeful. Her husband, Brandon, and their 3 daughters have had to rebuild their lives under the shadow of not knowing who did this or why. I bet that is really, really difficult for all 4 of them.
Yeah, we always talk about not knowing the why is so hard.
And
not that probably knowing the why makes it better, but
I think it leaves your mind to churn about a whole other aspect of the case, though.
Yeah.
And not knowing the who, when a lot of the theories point to something personal, then you would be wondering, is that person still in my life?
Yeah, for sure.
They have endured hurtful accusations from strangers, and the general suspicion that falls on people related, loving the husband, that are connected to a case like this. Brandon has spoken out saying he trusts the investigators and wants the rumor mill to stop so that the real focus can be on finding the killer. Missy's mother-in-law said, quote, "When they make an arrest, will we feel like celebrating, or will it just reopen wounds?" And I think that is really spot on, because if you're a little bit worried that it might be somebody in her life, how is that going to feel?
Yeah.
Over the years, the Midlothian police have publicly reaffirmed their commitments to finding Missy's murderer. They've said, Missy and her family deserve our best efforts, and that hasn't changed over the years. They are confident that the case can be solved, and somewhere out there, someone knows something that could crack this wide open. The captain of the police department has emphasized that even a seemingly minor tip could be the one piece that they're missing. And that's why they urge anyone with even a shred of information to come forward. Could a small DNA sample from the crime scene someday be identified through genetic genealogy? Could improved video analysis or AI reveal something new in the footage? Perhaps the perpetrator, thinking they got away with it, will talk to the wrong person or slip up in a way as time goes on. For now, we're left with the unsettling questions. Who is the person in the police costume seen wandering the halls of the church? What was their true motive for killing Missy, and how have they managed to keep the truth hidden for so long? Missy's story remains unfinished and her killer unmasked, but her memory lives on in her community and the lives of the people she inspired through fitness, and in the hearts of her family and friends who refuse to let her case be forgotten. Maybe you listening to this can think of something others haven't. Maybe someone out there will hear a detail and realize, wait, I remember so-and-so had a weird injury then, or I know someone who bought police gear off of eBay, or some other key insight. Until then, Missy's loved ones and investigators will continue to seek justice. If you have any information about this case, you can reach out to Crime Stoppers in the area or the Midlothian police. And remember, even the smallest clue could be the one piece that they're missing. Any final thoughts or theories?
No, I think we covered a lot of them. I still wonder if it was someone who was jealous of her. That's kind of what it feels like.
It feels personal. It feels planned.
The way that they're just walking so nonchalantly through the church doesn't feel like they're there with a different purpose. I don't know.
Agreed. And you can come up with a reason why for them to be there, and just the worst coincidence ever. But I tend to not like coincidences. I don't know.
Yeah. And I do wonder, like we talked about, if there were any other burglary cases of people dressed up. We'll have to look into that and see in the area if it was some kind of coincidence. And that, I don't know. The video is so strange. the way that they're meandering
unsettling
through there.
Yes.
Not with any other purpose. It doesn't feel like.
It's a long time to be in there hanging out and also not taking anything.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe if you're teenage kids causing trouble, that's something you do. I don't know. It doesn't feel like something someone would just break in to just walk around the church.
Yeah, and just smash things for fun.
Yeah. Maybe if you're like
maybe
kids, but
this didn't seem like that.
Didn't seem like a kid. And it wasn't like a group of kids out causing mischief or something. One person. I don't know.
And you would think that if it was a group of teenagers or even one who's feeling like doing this, it wouldn't be on a Sunday night into a Monday morning because you've got school. You might think it would be more on a Friday night or a Saturday night, unless they're older. But
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Crime Clueless. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you are looking for the resources or to learn more about this case, head over to our blog. You can find it on our website, crimeclueless.com. We would love to chat with you on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. On all of those, we are at Crime Clueless. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would be ever so grateful if you would take a moment to rate or review our podcast. You can rate and review on Apple, and you can give us a rating on Spotify. Also, Audible allows reviews as well. It's a fast, free, easy way to support us, and it means the world. Your support also helps us reach more listeners and grow our amazing community. You can find Crime Clueless on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, iHeart, and all streaming platforms, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were #1 most bingeable true crime podcast on Good Pods, which was cool. I like that.
That's really cool.
And as always, remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murders.
Bye.
Bye.